Hi there, this is my one-take video for Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban. So I'm coming to you from my bedroom slash office. I am filming in front of my graphic novel shelf. You can see Watchmen right there. That's the film that we'll be dealing with on Thursday. So this week, the last film we'll be doing in this course. Also, there's the immortal bard, William Shakespeare. I don't know why he's there, except that he fits there. So anyway, um, as this sort of indicates, I actually I don't have a lot to say about Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban, um, except in a sort of general way. So I actually feel a little self-conscious about it because I feel like you, my students, know a whole heck of a lot more about Harry Potter than I do. I don't have a book to flash you here on the screen. I don't own any Harry Potter books. I did live in a group house a few years back. Well, when most of the films were coming out and most of the books were coming out, I had a housemate, actually the daughter of a housemate named Sarah, who was high school and then college age, like a lot of people of her age group, pretty obsessed about Harry Potter. She was one of those people who would like get there at midnight when the book is first on sale, and she would grab that book, and within 24 hours, she would have read a 400 to 500 page novel. So, like a lot of people, I was impressed by that, and as a sort of writer, or aspiring writer, I was, not just inspired but encouraged that there were young people who still wanted to read and were so obsessed about it that reading became for them a hobby horse, to use that phrase again. So, but I think by now I've seen all the films. So I know a few things about the films, but and the only bit I've read is really the bit that was assigned for this course from the Prisoner of Azkaban. Um, that Sarah, my housemate, and other people were saying, really encouraged me to read the books, and I really want to. But when I was in graduate school, I only had time to read, Derrida and Foucault and New Historicism, and anyway, I couldn't allow myself to read for pleasure, and I knew Harry Potter, the books would give me pleasure, but I didn't have time to read them. So anyway, that's uh, something to do in my retirement, or at least something I could do now that I'm not working on a dissertation. Um, so again, Harry Potter, you all know a lot more about it than I do. I look forward to reading your reflections on Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban as part of your blog response post assignment on that film. Um, let me just, I'll say one thing and then I'll say something completely unrelated. Well, also an anecdote. Well, let me go with my anecdote now. Yesterday, I went with a friend to the shoot, what's the name of the town? Oh, Shepherdstown, West Virginia. It's a college town. Anyway, they're having a festival, and I went there, and there's all these artists have with their stuff on display on Main Street. One guy was a woodworker. He had, well, he had a bunch of wands. So as a little, as a joke, I said, "Do you have any Harry Potter wands?" And he said, more or less with a straight face, "No, I'm out of those now." So I thought he was playing along. So I said, "How about, do you have any Dumbledore wands?" And he said, "Oh, I'm fresh out of those too." And again, I thought he was just sort of playing along with me. But then he said, I was working on the Dumbledore one, but it's not quite done, and so I left it at home. And so then I'm starting to get an indication that this guy he's kind of serious. In fact, Harry Potter for him, I guess, particularly the wands, is a hobby horse for him. Something he's a little obsessed about. So anyway, we chatted a little bit more, and then he was like saying, the next event he would, definitely have more Harry Potter and Dumbledore wands. Oh, he did say he had a McGonagall wand, but he had sold that. So anyway, at that point, I was kind of like, okay, I think I'm gonna go to another another little stand here and see what else other people have. And then a moment later, 2 moments later, he crossed the street and he gave me he had a flyer with the different events that he goes to with his wands, and some of them are crossed out because he'd already done them. But he said, "Well, I'm going to be here for this one, and I'll have my full assemblage of wands, including Harry Potter, Dumbledore, and McGonagall." So I said, "Oh, okay, thanks." Anyway, in some ways, I'm kind of fascinated by this sort of whole subculture of people who sort of take this stuff seriously. I mean, like the people who like play Quidditch, um, not on flying brooms, of course, at least not yet, but sort of imagine that as a real sport. Anyway, fascinating stuff. All right, 6 minutes. Um, okay, not unrelated yet. Uh, Harry Potter was not my thing and has not been my thing like it has been with many of you. I mentioned in my previous video that I like science fiction now, but I used to be into fantasy a lot, and J.R.R. Tolkien was the man when it came to fantasy literature. So I read The Lord of the Rings like 3 times when I was in high school. I just loved it. I wanted to be in that world. Uh, and I will say, it's really interesting what Peter Jackson's doing with The Hobbit. Well, interesting and a little bit mercenary in terms of I thought, and I still think to some extent that taking The Hobbit and turning it into 3 films is a little much. It's really it's much more slight than the Lord of the Rings, and I don't mean that just in terms of being one book as opposed to 3. It's a story for children, whereas the Lord of the Rings is very much a story for children, but also adults. It's at a higher level, sort of comprehension in terms of its mythology and its themes and what have you. So, but I have to say, I've seen after seeing the first Hobbit film, I liked it. I thought it was really well done, and I'm looking forward to seeing what Peter Jackson's going to do with the other 2 films. Though, as I said, I think a big reason why it's 3 films as opposed to 1 is that it's going to make a crap load of money, and it already has. So, so yes. So Tolkien, Lord of the Rings, that was my thing when I was a kid, and a young adult and what have you. I mean, now I thought Peter Jackson's adaptation of the 3 books was masterful, brilliant. I have a few complaints about it. It was a big improvement on the first attempt to adapt the Lord of the Rings into film, which was done by Ralph Bakshi in the 1970s, which I actually saw. I think I saw it in a drive-in movie theater, which you may not even know what that is, but it's basically a place you watch the movie from your car in a big lot with a lot of other people. Um, but that was done sort of in a primitive precursor to rotoscoping, which is, of course, what Richard Linklater did for Scanner Darkly, in that it was basically filming um, live action and then basically hand coloring in the frames, to make it look more like animation. And again, Disney did that, way back in the day, and I think this might have been a Disney adaptation, but it tried to do the whole Lord of the Rings in one film. And I think this innovative animation was actually problematic in that a lot of people didn't like it and didn't like the film because of it. But an interesting thing about Ralph Bakshi, who directed and created this film, he was best known for creating a film version of a comic strip called oh shoot, I'm gonna forget it now. It's not Felix the Cat. Fritz the Cat. So Fritz the Cat is sort of a parody of Felix the Cat, I guess. But Fritz the Cat was the first, I think, the first X-rated animated cartoon. So I think now, if you saw it now, and you probably could stream it somewhere, it's fairly tame compared to what you'd see like on Family Guy or what have you. But at the time, it was kind of controversial in terms of the sex in it, with this cat, Fritz the cat. Fritz the cat, by the way, was initially created by R. Crumb, who was the first artist who did artwork for American Splendor. He was a friend of Harvey Pekar. I mentioned him in my film essay, R. Crumb, in terms of his artwork, a well-known countercultural comic artist. So, well, that's a good segue into this. I actually found this just the other day. This is Harvey Pekar, American Splendor, remember? Not the Israel my parents promised me. So actually, I was at school just the other day, and I went to the mail room to see if I had any mail there, and someone had left a bunch of books there for free. There was a lot of current and poetry that I grabbed, and lots of other good stuff. But this was one of the books that was there. So I thought, great, Harvey Pekar. I've been dealing with him, thinking about him, talking about him, writing about him for this course. This is, I don't know, not the best Pekar, I would say. It's basically sort of a history lesson about the creation of state of Israel, and Harvey Pekar as a Jew, someone raised by Zionists and Jews, was it became disillusioned with what was going on in Israel and the Arab Israeli conflict. So it's, in a sense, this book is it's a graphic novel. I guess you'd call it that, or maybe a graphic pamphlet would be a better way of saying it. As I said, it's a history lesson about the state of Israel, but also sort of an editorial. But the one thing about this is that the one artist did the whole book, and actually the one artist is sort of a character in the book. But a lot of it is done in the sort of style he's talking about, medieval Judaism, and also the early artworks of Islam, and he does the writing, the art in that style. So I'm glad I got the book for that reason alone. Oh, and the fact that, again, Harvey Pekar is one of my hobby horses, and and of course Harvey Pekar was certainly a man beset by hobby horses of his own. No, 12 minutes, 13 minutes. I think I can stop now. As I said, I didn't have a lot to say about Harry Potter, except in general terms about the fact that you all know more about Harry Potter than I do, but I can sort of talk about the films and compare those in my experience to like Lord of the Rings for me, and other things. So I'll stop there, and got two more of these to go, and I'll try to get them up before the class is actually